Good afternoon and welcome to the Turning Point. I'm just very glad to have as my guest today the governor of the state of Michigan, the Honorable Gretchen Whitmer, who many know as the lady that challenges everybody and who has been known to be called Big Gretch by some because of the very big job that she has. And today we want to talk about the most recent issues in our state, the new mandates that relate to the COVID-19 virus that we're dealing with in terms of how some changes have been instituted as of today, Wednesday, and then we want to discuss the most recent debacle in Wayne County and the pending certification of the vote count in the state of Michigan. So please join me, and I want to welcome the Honorable Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Welcome, Governor.
Thank you, Reverend Anthony. I'm always glad to be with you. I appreciate your leadership and your counsel to me and your friendship, and so I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. I have too, and so do your people. Governor, you know, Michigan is a hotbed, and it has unfortunately seen a spike in terms of the COVID-19 situation. A lot of people just don't want to deal with it. I hear this talk about COVID fatigue, but rather COVID fatigue than COVID death, and just wearing the face mask. What are the new mandates that you've suggested and put out there for people in the local communities to deal with right now?
Yeah, so what we're seeing across Michigan is community spread of COVID-19. This is the level at which we have to really start tightening things up. This is where we start to see our hospitals fill up. This is when we start to see increase in numbers in every age group, and that's what's happening across Michigan. We're at the precipice right now of whether or not this explodes out of control, and one model predicts that we'll have 1,000 deaths a week if we don't do something dramatic right now.
You're saying
and
a
so
week?
Our public health experts are telling us we've got to tighten up and make sure that we don't have groups of people gathering indoors from many different households. And it's really hard going into the holiday season, but it means restaurants where we have lots of households combining indoors without masks because people are eating. Those are just inherently dangerous. And so we had to tighten up there. We have taken kids out of high school age and college age and said we're going to have virtual learning for those age groups and leave it up to the districts, whether our school districts, if they want to extend that policy to our younger students. So this is, I think, a moment where we have to acknowledge the inherent danger of being inside with people with whom you don't live, without wearing masks or even just for a prolonged period of times, even with masks. It's a dangerous situation because there's just so much COVID across our state right now.
Governor, I understand that, and I know a lot of people who hear you understand that as well. But, you know, always the challenge is for business and families. You know, people like to be together during holidays and holy days, and certainly there's a challenge now. But one of the challenges that, you know, business folk have, particularly in neighborhoods, you know, I think of businesses on Livernois or on McNichols or on Gratiot or on Grand River, right in the heart of the community. They cannot survive without certain kinds of resources and being able to open up. And I know the issue, but what do you say to them, and what do you suggest that they do, and what kind of assistance do you see forthcoming to preserve these mall and paul businesses that have been around for years and now find themselves in this kind of situation?
Yeah, it's the hardest part of this moment is there are no easy decisions. If we don't get our arms around the health crisis, our economy will struggle. Getting our arms around the health crisis means that there are businesses that will struggle, and that's why we've really worked hard to make sure that we prioritize Black-owned and women-owned and veteran-owned businesses as we have put some of the federal dollars to work in our communities. We understand that this is a uniquely precarious time for those businesses in particular. We're also calling on the federal government to get this fourth stimulus done. Mm-hmm. You know, they've only given people $1,200 this year in terms of having some resources for those who are not employed right now, for those who are struggling to put food on the table. That's not nearly enough. We need to do more. This fourth supplemental, we've seen the House of Representatives, thanks to Speaker Pelosi and her leadership and the members of the House of Representatives in Washington, do a $3 trillion stimulus. That would give us the resources to help these businesses, to wrap our children with the kinds of supports they need, because the learning loss from COVID-19 is real, and it's going to require a lot of remediation. If we could get this done, this is the lifeline that I know the businesses that you're advocating for on the Avenue of Fashion and so many others in Detroit need desperately right now, and that's why we're not going to let up. I know that the Biden-Harris administration is committed to these things, but we can't wait until January 20th, and that's why we're really trying to get the Trump administration to get serious. They have an opportunity to go out of office having done something really important for Americans everywhere, and I hope they take it, but I'm not assuming it, but we're working toward that.
Well, we all hope that it would be like that, Governor, but you and the president, unfortunately, are not on the best of terms, not because of anything that you have done against him, but what you've tried to do for the people. And he seems to have gone into a shell right now, not doing anything other than trying to dismantle the recent election results. I mean, do you see any potential there in terms of a breakthrough? Is he cooperating, or are we just resigned to the situation of having to deal with January 20th under a new administration and hoping for the best until then?
Yeah, well, I'm not resigned. I do think that there still is a possibility. Is it a great likelihood? I'm not sure how to put the odds on that. But I can tell you, this isn't just about Michigan. This is about every state in the nation. This is about states with Republican governors who he gets along very well with, and Democratic governors who we've had our differences. But sorry, that's the dog. They're going to go put him out outside.
That's quite all right. I understand.
But this is something that is not unique to us. Every American state, every American city has people who are struggling because of this pandemic, has people that are struggling because of the incredible economic impact that the mismanagement of the pandemic has had. And so it is Republican and Democratic governors who are coming together to not just engage with the incoming Biden administration, but to stay on top of the outgoing Trump administration. And we're hopeful that maybe we can get a little something done in these days, remaining of the Trump administration. We are focused on a longer term agenda with the Biden administration.
Well, even your dog barks at the name of Trump, so that must mean something. He wasn't barking before we got to that, and when that name was mentioned, he started barking. I understand. But let me ask this, and you mentioned the Biden administration, and all of us look for and hope for more during that time period. You have come under threats against your life, threats against the leadership at the Capitol, and you're fighting from the inside and from the outside. Republicans have not been cooperative. They've filed lawsuits against you, even though some of them have in fact caught the COVID-19 disease. And they're still fighting against the moves that you're trying to make to save their lives and those of their constituency. I know when you became governor, you were not expecting what we are seeing right now. Nobody was predicting COVID-19, but now that you're in it and you got to deal with it, how do you feel when it comes to, I'm trying to save folks' lives, they threatening mine, and they waving flags on the state capitol. The legislature is fighting against me. I mean, what in the world is going on? And we even see in other states where people who are victims of COVID-19 are in hospitals and resenting the fact that they're there and have to wear masks, mad at the healthcare workers who are trying to help them. It is like, is this a Twilight Zone, or what are we in? Yeah,
I mean, we're so divided as a nation, and we can't even have a conversation around the facts, because this president has called them alternative facts and has misinformed so many people in the public, sadly to their own detriment. I mean, when you cram people together for political rallies without masks on, where they are projecting their voices, you expose them to COVID. And we have seen COVID outbreaks as a result of those events. And it's really, I was thinking about it, everything that's happened this year. And it just, I'm not mad, although I could be justified in being mad.
Yeah.
I'm not fearful, and certainly could be justified if I was fearful with all the threats that have come my way. I'm sad. I'm sad that we have seen this devolution of the American conversation, the American spirit, experience, and an American election. We should all be able to say this election was a fair and free and secure election. And by God, the people of this country have spoken. We should be able to say, even if your guy didn't win, you recognize the fundamental importance of this election, and that we need a transition that doesn't jeopardize our homeland security and doesn't jeopardize our individual public health. That's not happening, and it saddens me. However, it doesn't defeat me. I am determined. I'm determined to continue doing my job, because I know that we've saved thousands of people in Michigan. I know that there are a lot of lives on the line as we go into this surge that we are experiencing right now. There's a lot at stake here, and I got a job to do, and I'm not going to be bullied or dissuaded by threats from others, but it would be great if I could get some more allies, and I am hopeful that we will. But no matter what, I'm going to keep doing what I know to be the right thing and using every power that I have to do it.
Speaking of allies, Governor, you just formed a new commission, the Black Leadership Advisory Commissioner Council. What is that about, and what's the purpose of it?
Well, one of the things we saw, early on in COVID is the incredible disparities that it had on communities of color, in particular the African American community. So we jumped into action. I mean, Dr. Janae Caldoun, I think, is a wonderful example of why real empowered representation matters. She was looking at the numbers and early on said there is a huge impact on the Black community. We've got to move forward. We got to share this demographic data. We got to spend some money to have outreach so that we can educate the public. We got to wrap this community around with additional healthcare supports. And we did that. And what was really devastating early on in the African American community is now we've made great strides. But it's all very precarious because this virus is still a very real threat. But we wanted the work of our Racial Disparities Task Force to live well beyond and inform way beyond just healthcare policy as it is. COVID has held up a mirror to the U.S. And our racial discrepancies and inequities that have been here since the founding of this nation. We've got a duty, especially with all the righteous racial demonstrations that have happened so much of this summer. We have a duty to push forward with an agenda that actually addresses the contributing factors to this inequality and inequity. And so we created a commission that has great representation from various aspects of African American leaders across our state, community leaders, ecumenical leaders, subject matter experts. And being one of the first states to do something like this, I think we have an opportunity to really set a bar for others to follow. So the Black Leadership Council will be a leading pillar in our efforts to lay a new foundation for equity and inclusion in Michigan. Because, the African American population of Michigan is the largest minority in our state. The council is the first of its kind, and Michigan is in many ways, I think, setting a bar that I'm hopeful others will emulate. But we've got work to do. There's no question. Right here, we have work to do, and that's what we're all about. We're going to get it done.
Well, I appreciate that, Governor. And I have to ask you this because one of the things that I hear, and you may have heard, is that here we go with another commission, and are the commissions really designed to be effective, or will they be prohibitive? And will the commission is only as good as the advice that is given and the advice that is taken. So what would you say to those people who are skeptical about commissions, and is it really going to have some weight and have some substance when it comes to the ear of the governor and being able to impact and influence policy.
Yeah. Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, we don't create commissions just to have commissions, and I don't believe in tokenism. Throughout this administration, I have appointed the most diverse cabinet that our state's ever seen. We did it by leveling barriers on the front end to get the highly qualified candidates that are out there, but have historically not been able to have a seat at the table. We know that a lot of work to do here in Michigan, and that we are at our strongest. And we believe this and we live this. We live our values in this administration every day. When we're at our strongest when we have real representation around the table that is not tokenism, but is empowered, that is making a difference. We've done it in criminal justice in this last year when we've had to be so focused on COVID. We still have gotten a lot of things accomplished when it comes to returning citizens and criminal justice and empowerment and clean slate legislation. We're going to continue to move forward on that front, but so many others where there's inequities that have been historically baked into our policy and our priorities.
You know that your friend, the president, signed an executive order really trying to dissuade corporations and government entities that receive federal funds from doing any kind of diversity training or inclusivity studying, and to bring folk together. And are we paying attention to that? Has that prohibited any of that kind of inclusion, diversionary or diversity involvement within the departments of government and within your attempts to do business? Is that a roadblock? I know we're in it until the new administration comes in, but what's your response to that?
Well, it will fall probably on day one, I would imagine. I know that they are preparing a list of actions that they will be taking on day one to undo some of the damage of this last 4 years. A lot of the diversity training and implicit bias trainings that's happening are the choice of businesses that have stepped up to take this on. And I'm grateful that we've got some great business leaders. And you and I are familiar with who some of them are, but I know TCF, GM, right. That, just as a couple of quick examples. I'll also say in state government, we have implicit bias training. And I've been on a mission to educate people about what that means. I know that there are people out there who hear that and assume that they're being called a racist. And I've really taken pains to explain to people, implicit means you don't even know it's there. Mm-hmm. It's not intent. It's not, I'm not calling you a racist. I'm saying every one of us is a culmination of our experiences, of our teachings, of our observations. And those things inform how we act. Sometimes we don't even know it. When some people hear a Southern accent, they might make a snap judgment about that person, about their family, about their education level. That's implicit bias. Mm-hmm. We got to all understand the different things that come into our thinking so that we can understand how they impact our actions. And understanding is how we fix the problem.
The issue with regards to opportunities with the state, and I know that there's been a lot of commissions and concerns about the bias training and all of that. What kind of opportunities do you see with the state of Michigan are apparent now that were not prior to your administration for African American and minority business people, contractors? What kind of things are there, and do you see an emphasis in that area so that more people can be a part of what the state has to offer in addition to what cities are doing?
Absolutely. One of the first actions that I took as governor was to improve our procurement operation, to make sure that there was a real emphasis on doing business from the state of Michigan with Michigan businesses and African American businesses in particular, women-owned businesses, veterans-owned businesses. And this, I think, is something that has really changed the landscape in terms of how our taxpayer dollars are spent here in Michigan on Michigan businesses, and in particularly on communities that have historically been underrepresented in those contracts. We've also made an aggressive effort to ensure that we've got real diversity in the 350 boards and commissions that I appoint it's really pretty incredible the different ways that we have really changed the face and the experience of people around these positions of power, these tables where decisions are made. And so for anyone who's watching, who is interested in being appointed to a board or commission in Michigan, I encourage you to reach out to Geeta Dagger on my team. She's my appointments director. We've made incredible strides in Michigan. I mean, you just look at, some of the boards that we've really changed. I mean, I'm talking about our college boards. Those are decision makers who decide what the environment's like on campus, what the access to student aid is like on a campus, what the policies are in housing. I mean, these people have real reach. These are important positions, and we're always looking for candidates who bring something to the table. And diversity is a big part of that.
In the time we have left, Governor, I just want to switch to politics for a moment. We just had the debacle in Wayne County with the certification process. However, the board did at the last minute certify the election. They were attempting to extract out of the Wayne County issue elections the city of Detroit. And they had not done that of any other suburban community, but only in Detroit were they talking about not certifying the election and letting the rest of them go forward. I just want to ask you, is Detroit still an important part of Michigan relative to the vote? Is the power of the Detroit vote essentially as significant as it used to be with regards to the state and the overall ability of the state to move forward and to accomplish some of the goals that you may want to accomplish as a governor?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, Detroit is the engine of our economy, and the people of Detroit are the heart and soul of our democracy. No path goes through Michigan without first and foremost going through the city of Detroit. So I was really stunned to hear the candid observation that one of the Republicans on the Board of Commissioners in Wayne County said yesterday, that they'd be willing to certify the 42 other communities, but not Detroit. I mean, that just tells you that it's about race. It tells you that it's about putting President Trump's election over the will of the people of this state, the will of all the people, but in particular, insult to the people of Detroit and the African-American community. I mean, it's outrageous and it's unacceptable. And I'm so grateful that so many activists went and spent their time waiting in line, put pressure on that board. These are ministerial positions. It means that it's not about their judgment. They don't get to make decisions. They look to see, is everything in order? Okay, well, maybe there are a few things that need to be settled. You alert that, but you still certify the election. So what they were attempting to do in the onset was in violation of their own legal duties. So I'm glad that they came back and fixed it, but we cannot take anything for granted. The next step is the State Board of Canvassers. They will meet on the 23rd. And I think that it's important that we all continue to put the pressure on for them to conduct their official job and get that to my desk so that I can send it into the National Archives and certify Michigan's vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Gary Peters, and everyone else on this ballot.
Are you feeling good about that, or do you see any stumbles along the road to that inevitability?
Well, I'm concerned about it because if they're willing to play this game at the state, at the county level, we can't assume that they won't play that same game at the state board. And that's why I think, I've said it's my expectation they will do their job, that they will finalize the results, that they will do what the law requires them and get the votes certified into my desk. But we have to make preparations for in the event that they abrogate their duties. And that's why it's important for activists and all of us to continue to stay engaged on this one.
Yeah, I heard Senator Shirkey make the comment that one of the things that would happen if they were not certified, that they could bring a whole new set of electors to the state, and that as opposed to voting for Biden and Harris, they would then shift to Trump and Pence, and that's part of the strategy. And so, but he said that they would not change the electors because of the victory and the large margin that Biden and Harris got. Do you trust that?
I'm just saying that will not stand, and we will do everything in the power of the governor's office, everything in our power as a state to ensure that the will of the people is reflected in the group of electors that on the names that I send to the National Archives. We've got a few more steps in the process, but we will use every tool that we have to protect the will of the voters of the people of Michigan.
Michigan has been real good to the Biden-Harris team. We changed the outcome of the election, got a lot of support from you, from the city of Detroit, from the whole state. They won it. What are you expecting now from the Biden-Harris administration in terms of Michigan and the people that you govern?
Well, we're gonna have a great partner in the White House for a change. I'm really excited about the Biden-Harris administration, and I think it's important to recognize, you know, he's still going to have to work with a U.S. Senate that is led by Mitch McConnell. Fortunately, he's got a House of Representatives led by Nancy Pelosi, but it's going to, you know, it's certainly going to be a lot of work ahead. Donald Trump is going to leave office with an incredible mess that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have to navigate through and clean up, and they're not even running a transition in a way that they usually would, which is going to just make that job even harder. But the good news is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are up to this task, and if anyone can navigate it, it's the two of them. And I am really grateful for both of their friendship, their commitment to Michigan. I think Michigan voted for Joe Biden because Joe Biden knows us and we know Joe. Yeah. And I expect to have a great ally for the state of Michigan in this Biden-Harris White House.
So, Governor, if he asked you, Governor, give me 3 priorities for you and your state, what would you say?
Well, first and foremost, it'd have to be COVID, and it would have to be about making sure that we've got support for our children in our schools, to our businesses that are struggling, to our ability to administer and promote a vaccine when vaccines are safe and ready. And including in COVID would be healthcare. I mean, that's expanding who's got access to healthcare is critical. And I'm worried about the Supreme Court. I'm worried about the, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. I'm worried about women's rights with the Supreme Court. And so I think that we are going to have a lot to do on just in that space alone. But I will also talk about, of course, infrastructure. We have an infrastructure crisis in this country. In Groseal, we've got a bridge that is 50 years old and is going to be closed for we don't know how long, because we need the resources to rebuild. It's a Wayne County bridge. But I, as the governor of the state, am very worried about it too. And that's one of many issues in infrastructure that we have, whether it's clean water to people's homes or it is the roads and bridges that we travel on every day. These are important aspects, and I know Joe Biden's focused on infrastructure as well. So healthcare, infrastructure, and of course, closing the skills gap so that people can get into good paying jobs. We're doing a lot of good stuff at the state level, but if we had real federal partnership, we could go a lot further. Governor,
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but ain't nobody here but you and me. So if he calls you and say, Big Gretch, I need you in D.C., what you going to do? You know what? I love Joe Biden. He's going to be a great president. We've had a conversation about whether or not that's something that I would be interested in. And I told him I'm never going to say no, that I won't have a conversation. But I am focused on this job. I love being the governor of Michigan. I got 3 generations of my family here in Michigan. My best dream was that he and Kamala Harris got elected, so it'll help me do even more as governor of Michigan. So I have no intention or interest in going to Washington, D.C. I got work to do right here. Now, that's the first time I heard you say, well, you never say no. Well, how do you say no to a president-elect? Yes. You don't. You hear him out. Right. But I was very clear. I'm not looking to go to Washington, D.C. I want to be right here, and I want Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to be my best friends in the White House, and they will be. That would be a powerful thing, because we've not had that kind of relationship. But with the connection between the White House, your house, and the house in the city, I could see Detroit and Michigan really elevating because of the direct pipeline and the interest that we have from each other, and without all of the rigmarole and the issues that get in the way of just having good policy.
Yep. Amen.
So hopefully you will be around for a while, unless they make you an offer that you just simply cannot refuse.
It ain't going to happen, Rev. I'm here to stay. And you know what? Mayor Duggan and I've talked about this too. I think he is too. But, you know, I'm committed to Michigan. I love Michigan. I've never wanted to go to Washington, D.C. And my best hope was that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be there, so that when I do go to visit, I'm visiting people that are going to help us here in Michigan.
And you come back with a handful of goodies for the state of
Yep.
Michigan. Right. I see behind you your eternal sign that says respect, which sends out a message. Hopefully people will get that as relates to Michigan and the leadership here and the people here. And then on November 23rd, we'll get the respect that we deserve related to the certification of our votes. And we
I
appreciate...
don't know if you saw this too, Rev, but I'm proud to display this too.
I think I've seen that before. Congratulations. That is the Freedom and Justice Award from the Detroit branch NAACP. We appreciate that. Certainly you're keeping that flame alive as a freedom fighter for justice and for respect and dignity for our people. Governor, I want to thank you for giving us this time to talk with you and to talk about the future of Michigan. And we're going from here. You're helping us to turn the point. And we look forward to future discussions and any way we can help move our city and our state forward. Please know we're here to do that, and we appreciate your leadership.
Thank you, Reverend. Stay safe and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too. You've been listening to Governor Gretchen Whitmer as the leader of our state in relationship to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the election issues in the city of Detroit. So we appreciate that, and we look forward to that. As we are in the season of Thanksgiving, I want to remind everyone that there's still people who are in need beyond we ourselves. I want to invite you to join with the James E. Wadsworth Jr. Community Center of Fellowship Chapel, as we'll be distributing food baskets on November the 24th between 9 and 5 p.m. You have to register online if, in fact, you need a basket. You can contact the JEWJCC.org, James E. Wadsworth Jr. Community Center.org. We'll have a slide that you can see, and you can also call the church, Fellowship Chapel at 313-347-2820, 313-347-2820. We'll be distributing food baskets for persons in need until they're gone, and we will also be distributing, there's a flyer for this Thanksgiving giving. You can also, if you want to support this program, you can also make a donation by Cash App through Fellowship Chapel, PayPal, paypal.me/Fellowship Chapel, or you can text Fellowship Chapel to 36413, or you can even drop off a check to the church and to support the distribution of food baskets for people in need in the community. That will again be on Tuesday, November the 24th from 9 to 5, but you must register online in order to secure that basket. I want to invite anyone who volunteer to help stuff the baskets, call the church and identify that as well. They will also be distributing light bulbs free that we have received through the good graces of DTE Energy, and also energy information relative to how to preserve and protect your energy from being shut off during these upcoming winter months. Trust me, winter is coming. Don't let the good weather fool you, because in a minute it's going to really be trying to cool you, and it's going to cool you off in a way that you are not really happy to receive. So again, we want to thank you for joining with us on today. Our guest has been Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Governor of the state of Michigan. Thank you for joining The Turning Point. See you next time. God bless you.